All right, welcome on in everybody to this episode of First CSP, the channel dedicated to bringing you the first council shoulder patch issue from all councils in Scouting America, both past and present. I want to thank everybody that's been coming back each day for our new episodes. We have a new episode debut every single day. If you have been enjoying the content and aren't subscribed, we would ask that you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It really does help out the channel and allowing us to bring this content to more people. We're excited today because we've got Baden Powell Council 381 to be bringing you, as well as Baden Powell 368. This is one of the few councils that has, over time, absorbed another council and through that merger kept its name but been reissued a new number. And so we have, for our collection, tried to continue to collect the first issue under the new number, as well as any regular if it happens to be a special issue, and that does happen today. All right, so first up, we've got Baden Powell 381. This was originally a merger in 1975 of two councils that are hard to pronounce. Luis Agassiz Fuertes 381, and this one I'm probably not going to pronounce correctly, but Tayuga Ningoa 383. And then the Baden Powell 381 existed up until 1997 when it merged with Susquehanna 368 and became Baden Powell 368. So let's start off with 381. Baden Powell 381's first issue actually came in three variations, S1A, B, and C, and the first two, S1A and S1B, might be the most difficult patches for me to differentiate that we've seen on the channel this far. This is super hard to tell the difference between an S1A and an S1B, but there are some clues beyond what's provided in the collection guides that we're going to hopefully be able to help point out to you today and help you all make sure you're identifying patches correctly as well. All right, so going to the description for the S1A, we've got our brown border, we've got a dark gray background, we've got a red fleur-de-lis, red letters for Baden Powell Council and New York. We've got a non-standard shape, so straight sides and sharp corners. All three variations are in this same shape, so the S1A, B, and C all follow this same shape. The only difference they give us between the S1A and the S1B as far as descriptors is they tell us that the S1A has a dark gray background and the S1B has a light gray background. I will tell you that the differences in that coloration is super minor, but we have a couple other clues that we found that will help you identify the issues when comparing the two. Let's take a look at the back here of the S1A. It is a traditional gauze type back, but it has been plastic coated. All of these are plastic backs. So there is the S1A. Let's go ahead and take a look at the S1B as well. And I will put these up for a side-by-side in a moment, which will be a little bit helpful. Here is the S1B, defined by the same brown border, now listed as a light gray background, same red fleur-de-lis, red letters, straight sides, and sharp corners. And if we look to the back, it is also a gauze back. It's kind of hard to see. It's pretty refined. But not necessarily anything there that's going to be giving away that it is either an S1A or an S1B. They do look pretty similar. All right, so let's get both of these here on screen, talk about the differences we can see in person and the differences that might help you if you were just looking at one by itself to determine which of them you are looking at. So the two things that really stick out to me are Baden Powell's face and the fleur-de-lis shape. If you look at these, I do not see a major distinction. I mean, they do look like different shades of gray, but I wouldn't say that this is dark gray and this is light gray. They both look pretty gray, and the differences in shade are super minute. Certainly not enough that I could see a picture and say, oh, that is an S1A and that is an S1B. Now, the number one thing that sticks out to me is we've got this kind of puffy fleur-de-lis on the S1A, the first issue, and we have a slightly thinner fleur-de-lis on the S1B. I have seen multiple, certainly, of the S1A, and they are consistent. This isn't a difference that is just on one patch, with some thread variation or anything like that. They are consistent, so this is probably one of the best indicators if you were looking at a single photo of determining if you have an S1A, which is kind of the fatter one, or the S1B, which is thinner. The other thing that sticks out to me is the shading on Baden Powell's face is considerably darker on the S1A, and it is a lighter shade of brown on the S1B. I think that those two factors are more identifiable than the difference in shades of gray. I really don't see a difference much in the shades of gray, certainly not that you could just tell looking at one and know which one you're dealing with. Again, the border brown color, again, just looks similar enough. When we look to the backs, the lock stitching on each of these ends up being a clear lock stitching, so it's not that one has brown lock stitching and the other has clear. They're all clear lock stitching here, so no real great clues there on the back. So I would say the focus for me in identifying the differences here would be the shading on Baden Powell's face. It's darker on the T1A first issue, and you have a fatter fleur-de-lis on the T1A. I'm sorry, S1A. These aren't tool patches. S1A versus the S1B. We also still have an S1C variation. This one a little bit easier to tell distinct from the others because it has a much lighter brown border. So the S1C has a light brown border, light gray background, red fleur-de-lis, straight sides, sharp corners. Here we can compare this back. With the first issue, so S1A at the top, S1C at the bottom. We're back to kind of a larger fleur-de-lis. Here, the color does appear to be considerably lighter. So this one, it's easier for me to say, okay, that's a dark gray and that is a light gray. The S1C is the easiest of these patches to certainly identify. If we put up the S1B versus the S1C, again, both of these are listed as light gray backgrounds, but that is not the same coloration. Here you can see how much more difficult it is to compare the gray from the S1B with the thinner fleur-de-lis back to the original. There's not a lot of distinction there. This is certainly a much lighter gray. There's the back on the S1C. And then after the S1C, Baden Powell 381 has the S2, which goes to a standard shape. So essentially taking that same graphic and now putting it on a standard shape CSP. We've got a tan gold border, a light gray background, red fleur-de-lis, red letters, and is a standard shape. This one just kind of showing the next iteration in the pattern from the original Baden Powell 381. From there, Baden Powell merged in 1997 and became Baden Powell 368. The first patch for Baden Powell 368 is this nice gold mylar SA9. Again, all of these have the iconic imagery of Baden Powell's face adorning the patch. So here we have the SA9, the first issue, once it became Baden Powell 368. And because it was an activity issue, we also then have, for our collection, tried to obtain the first regular. And the first regular is essentially taking this same imagery and then just going to a regular thread, not the gold mylar thread for the image. And this would be the S10. So the S10 for Baden Powell 368, which was the first regular issue after the merger. Now the S10, not to be confused with the S31, which looks almost the same, came a little bit later in the Baden Powell Council's history and has the 368 ghosted over here on the side. So we'll put the S10 first regular up at the top. And this was the S31 much later with the 368. Now, easy to tell on the back because we've got the Scout backing on the S31, whereas we had just a traditional plastic back on the S10. All right, let's finish out with a parting shot of the very first patch from each. We'll put the Baden Powell 368 SA9 here at the bottom. And we'll put that S1A from our Baden Powell 381 up at the top. So a lot of Baden Powell. This is the second council we've highlighted on the channel that went through absorbing another council and was then donned a new council number afterwards. The first one was Grand Canyon. We also, at some point later, will have a video for the Longhorn Council, which has also had that happen. If you haven't seen the Grand Canyon Council's episode, I'll make sure I put a card at the end of this video. I want to thank you guys for staying tuned and watching the whole video. Hope you guys have enjoyed this content. If you have, please feel free to share it with your fellow scouters, and collectors. Love to see you back here tomorrow for our next episode. But until then, hope you guys have a great rest of your day.